Sometimes when people make perfectly common sense observations like we don't need hardcore incest porn in schools, the rejoinder will be, well, you're censoring art. You Philistines are trying to get rid of culture. And sometimes even people will say, there's a lot of bad stuff in the Bible. There's incest in the Bible, there's rape in the Bible. Are you now advocating that we ban the Bible? And it brings me back to really the center of the American debate over obscenity, which completely spun out of control in the middle of the 20th century. And it comes back to a Supreme Court justice named Potter Stewart, who was asked how to define pornography and obscenity. And he said, I can't quite define it, but I know it when I see it. And this line is made fun of. I mean, it's a term of derision that is thrown at conservatives. But I don't really see why it is made fun of when, as far as I can tell, you actually do know it when you see it. Is that such a crazy observation?
You do. I mean, there's this legal definition, of what obscenity is. I don't know why we need a legal definition because you do know it when you see it. But that's what unfortunately in Texas, there is a obscenity exemption clause in the law. And so if it's used in for an educational purpose, then it's allowed. And that's what they're hiding behind in the school, that and the First Amendment. They're saying it violates a child's First Amendment rights to pull these books off of the shelf, which I spoke to that in my first video. It's like, really? Are we violating their Second Amendment rights when we tell them they can't carry a gun to school? No, because they're children. We're talking about children. They don't have the same rights that we do as adults for good reason. So,
are we violating their Third Amendment rights when we quarter British soldiers in there? Well, no, never mind. That's not a good example. But there are plenty of other examples. No, of course. First of all, since when does the First Amendment protect your right to be able to access any book you want at a specific library, period, even if you're an adult? But then, second of all, to suggest that children have this right, do children have the right to say whatever they want in schools? I don't think so. I think if I said naughty things in schools, the teacher would yell at me and probably give me a bad grade.
Right. And we get called book burners a lot and we're trying to ban books. And my argument for that is, look, are we banning cigarettes and alcohol because we don't allow children to buy cigarettes and alcohol? Are we banning movies because we don't allow them to watch rated R, rated X, NC-17 movies? Are we banning all movies because of that? Are we banning guns because we don't let them, carry a gun or buy a gun? No, we're just limiting their access, children's access to these things because they're not mentally, emotionally ready for this kind of either physical or mental harm. Their brains are so ripe for, they're just so impressionable is the word I'm looking for at that age. And so we have to protect them. That's what we're supposed to do as adults. When did that stop? We've always protected our kids. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh no, they can handle it. They need to see it. They need to know that they're not alone. People, they throw out the whole Bible thing. And I actually saw somebody online arguing that point. And I'm like, okay, name a Sunday school class where the parts in the Bible about incest and all of that are, a Sunday school class where they teach those passages. Those passages are hard even for an adult sometimes to process and understand. So of course, we're not going to teach that to children.
In the introduction to the book of Genesis, say, maybe you wait a year or two before you deal with that.
Yeah. You stick with the Noah's Ark, and Adam and Eve being, in the garden with the apple and all of that. You don't hit those topics that are really very difficult, even sometimes for adults to understand. So, got to protect the kids and wait until they're developmentally ready for that type of material.
I love it when people call me a book burner and a book banner. I always say, oh, you're accusing me of banning and burning books like Plato or like the apostles in the book of Acts or like, I don't know, most great men throughout history who have beyond this kind of provocative image of burning books, who have had standards. Every society has standards, and we usually apply those standards in a much stricter way when we're talking about children. And they pretend that we're sort of somehow monsters or like we're fascists or something because we want to have what every society forever has always had, which is some kind of standard. The real irony of this, of course, is that, up until the middle of the 20th century, every school just about taught the Bible and banned pornography. And now, so many schools teach pornography, and the one book you are not allowed to teach in school, it's the only one. You can teach Mein Kampf, you can teach hardcore porn. The one book you can't teach is the Bible. So who's really doing the banning here, and what sort of banning are they doing?
It's a very good point. And the whole, standards thing, they're definitely trying to, it feels like they're trying to lower the standards every day, lower and lower. The bar gets lower and lower, and you can't. The only thing I can assume is that they're just wanting to normalize this stuff so that kids, their inhibitions are, honestly, I personally feel like they're trying to lower the inhibitions of children so that when they are approached, by traffickers, any kind of attempt to, the pedophilia seems to be they seem to be going towards even normalizing that. There are books in our libraries that, or have been, I don't know if they still are, don't quote me on that, but there have been that depict all pedophilia, LGBTQ, gay sex, and I don't care. No sex. Sorry, no sex. And neither book that I read from had anything to do with the LGBTQ community, and that's another criticism that we get, is that we're just after, this certain segment of the population, and it's just not true.
When you say we don't want books about pederasty in our schools, they say, "How dare you? That's homophobic." Come again? Hold on. All right, no, you're the one who are allowing these two things. But of course, Shannon, I can see you almost don't even want to say it. You don't even want to suggest that maybe these guys are trying to normalize pedophilia. But of course, we know that they are doing that. There was a professor who was caught in a big scandal because she was caught on camera trying to normalize pedophilia, to change even the word pedophile to map a minor attracted person, to take away the stigma of this orientation with which people are born. And you see this going on throughout the culture. You're seeing the normalization of drag queen story hour. What's that about? It's about bringing little kids into sexual situations. You're seeing on that same line of thought, drag kids, these poor little kids who are being sexually abused and who put on little skimpy dances, and in multiple cases have had grown men put dollar bills in their clothing. So this is not something that you're imagining in some crazy fever dream. This is happening. It's being broadcast on the mainstream media, and they tell us on the one hand, this is not happening, it's a delusion of the far right. And on the other hand, they're saying, this is happening, it's so wonderful, and you better celebrate it.
Yeah, the celebration part is where I have an issue. A lot of people tell us, especially as if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, we're to love everybody, and we are called to love everybody. But my definition of love is not encouraging and celebrating something that I think is destructive and evil.